I had a lunch a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me, it was a breakfast a couple of weeks ago with Newt Gingrich. It was a group breakfast, a group about half this size, and we were able to ask him a lot of questions. And he pointed out something I wanted to share with you all, and it was this: we have never had been in the minority this thin, or the Democrats have never had a majority this thin since the 1930s. When that has happened, when they have had thin majorities before, you would expect, and we've seen historically, that they would be cautious. But they're not being cautious right now. They are in an absolute burn it down mode. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is they have the triple crown, if you will. They have the president, the House, and the Senate. And you don't know if the Supreme Court will stand up to some of the challenges. They know that Nancy Pelosi will very likely not be there in 2 years. So that's the good news. When I put down my notes, I didn't realize that'd be such an applause line, right? Because we got to get to that 2 years, right? They do an awful lot of damage, right? When you think about the time between 2008 and 2010, the window of opportunity they have, and we're still dealing with Obamacare. So you have a 2-year window where they have a triple crown, and you see how much damage they can do. So that's the concern. And I want to talk about 4 things. The first is their priority. When you look at the House bills, usually HR, fill in the blank, whatever the number is, and when you see numbers 1 through 10, that's like their vanity plate projects, like their vanity license plate projects. They put HR 1 as they call it For the People Act, but it's essentially a For the Politicians Act. Let me tell you what it does. It's all about political power for them, and it's about keeping power and controlling elections, and it's a swamp takeover of your right to vote. It eliminates the voter ID laws. It makes mail-in voting permanent. It nationalizes ballot harvesting. It allows felons to vote. It allows politicians to receive taxpayer dollars to run on platforms that you completely disagree with. Unelected people that want to serve you and completely not represent you. And allows them to use your taxpayer dollars to do that. Does that make sense? People that want to run and do exactly opposite of what you want, you got to pay your dollars to allow them to run. And I don't think that's fair. So essentially it's the chaos of 2020. It takes the chaos of the 2020 election and it puts it into law and makes it happen every 2 years and every 4 years, over and over again, for the next 50 or 100 years. But once they got power, once they declared Biden's president, they put a razor wire fence around the Capitol to keep people out. But isn't it ironic that they don't believe that those walls work at the border, right? Biden had a press conference. I'm sorry if y'all spent any time on that this week. Because you will never get that time back, right? You will never get that time back. You know, we realize this is essentially Obama's 3rd term, and ABC reporter asked this question to an illegal who would cross the border. Would you have tried to do this when Donald Trump was president? And the illegal alien said, definitely not. Then they asked, did you come here because Joe Biden was elected president? To which the illegal responded, yes. So here's my immigration stance. It's real easy. Let's just enforce our laws. So I've been to the border. I've talked to Customs and Border Patrol agents. I've talked to ICE. I've seen the centers. I've seen the walls. I've stepped over the fence, right, in some places. Now, I live on that cattle farm, that chicken and cattle farm in Davie County, and I realized if you ran a fence for 100 yards, those cows are just going to go 101 yards and just walk right on around it, right? So it doesn't work when you have holes every other few miles. So it's a bad strategy. We need to turn off the magnets here that attract illegal immigrants and allow the trafficking of not only drugs through the cartels, but also human trafficking. It's an absolute travesty. It's inhumane, and we need to stop it. The second thing I want to talk about relates to a committee that I'm on. And, I could look over here across my shoulder and I can see Jim, or I can see Sherry Lynn. But if I go up to Washington and I'm in committee, I look over my shoulder and I see Maxine Waters. All right? So I'd rather be here. Absolutely. But we oversee the Federal Reserve. All right, we oversee the Federal Reserve on that. And in the last year, we have printed out of thin air $6 trillion and thrown it out into the economy. 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, we had a liquidity problem. We didn't have enough money in the economy, but boy, have they gone overboard. And we have to watch out for inflation, and then you choke down the means of by shutting down an economy and keeping people at home that want to be at work. We either incentivize people to stay home, or we shut down and we make them stay home by government mandates, and that closes down the means of production. So you're losing at both ends, and you're throwing too much money out there, and that leads to something that we heard about decades ago called stagflation. And we got to be on the lookout for that. So we want to hold government accountable. We want to have some fiscal restraint. We want to move towards a balanced budget. And but I want you to know the way I think, and as that I approach this, first of all, as a Christian, and secondly, as a conservative, and third, as a business person. But I'm also an optimist, and I'm an optimist with a lot of gratitude, even in a tough spot like Washington, D.C. A couple things I'm grateful for. One of them is our country and our great state. We have an amazing motto, and that's esse quam videre. And that is to be rather than to seem. And we have a lot of great leaders who live up to that. Some that don't, but a lot that do. I'm grateful also for this congressional district, including right here in Lee County. Now, my old congressional district had parts of 5 counties, and now it has parts of 10 counties. And but it's the same number of population, and then they're going to adjust it again. So they say in North Carolina, you change your congressional districts every week, whether you want to or not. Right? But I hope we get Lee County because it's amazing, and I love this district. This fits me a lot better because it matches how I grew up in Davie County. So I thank you all for what you stand for here. And the other thing I'm grateful for is to be able to serve in this role and to serve this district. But the third thing of 4 that I want to talk about is why I'm optimistic. And I'm optimistic about redistricting. I made a joke about how often we change our congressional districts here in North Carolina. But we're going to do it the right way coming up. Because of the 2020 census, they'll get the data here in probably around September. The state legislature, which we held, by the way, right? We're grateful for that. We held the House, we held the Senate. And by the way, I saw Sarah Newby here. Congratulations again to her dad, Chief Justice. One of the key roles he has in redistricting, and unfortunately, even as wonderful as a man as he is, and we're glad that we won all 8 of those judicial races that ran, I don't think they should have any say in what the state legislature does in regards to the district. That's right. But if they are going to have a say, then we want Justice Newby appointing that 3-judge panel. Amen. All right, so that's good. I'm very encouraged about that. Let me also talk about how likely it is to flip the House. Right now, well, always, out of 435, it takes 218 seats to win. The Democrats have 4 more than we do. If we flip 4 of theirs, we're in the majority. That's how close we are. And that's why they want to steal this seat in Iowa. I don't know if you're paying attention to that. If you're not, you need to look up. She's a physician, Marionette Miller Meeks. She's now a colleague of mine. She was sworn into Congress. She was certified by the state of Iowa, and she is a rightful member of Congress. And her opponent lost in the local courts, lost recounts, and now she is going directly and appealing to Nancy Pelosi to strip her of that seat, to strip Marionette Miller Meeks from Iowa of that. There's 4 congressional seats. All right, so we have to message whatever you do on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you have. You make sure you let your friends and family, if they're not in North Carolina especially, let them know to get loud about this, because we have to put a lot of daylight on this issue. Where Nancy Pelosi is not only trying to underhandedly win seats, she's trying to take ones that she doesn't have, and that's theft. But I'm very optimistic because in 1994 and 2010 we won between 50 and 60 seats. When the Democrats were in control, we will swing the seats 50 to 60 seats, and so that means we will be in control for a long time in the House. And one of the other things we have to do is we have to get back the Senate. Now the Warnock seat in Georgia, the Arizona seat with Kelly, those are 2-year seats. You have to do re-elections every 2 years until you get into that 6-year cycle. So those are all 2-year seats, and they're coming up again. And plus we have Richard Burr's seat coming up here. We want that in conservative GOP hands. Now I'm taking a look at that, but just to let you know, think about it. But, you know, I think about this thing also as a business person. I mentioned that earlier. You're saying, what in the world is this business since I'm new to Lee County? I'm a federal firearms licensee. I own an indoor shooting range and retail center north of Winston-Salem. It's called Pro Shots. And who goes bankrupt in the Obama era in a gun store? I don't know, but but somebody did, and I thank God for them because I bought it. And 10 years later, you know, first of all, I bought it for the Winston-Salem Police Department. And they said, we need a place to train our officers. I said, well, great, I'll take care of that, and I'll give you a great place. And one of the lieutenants there, he said, never underestimate the need of the public to have a safe place to shoot. And so we opened our doors to the public, and 50,000 customers later, you know, we're still standing and have a great team there. So I'm grateful for that business. But I say all that to tell you, one, not just that I love business, but the other is that you know I love the Second Amendment, and I'm going to defend it. The fourth thing I want to talk about is that the Democrats care about power and canceling conservatives and Republicans. It's this cancel culture problem. First thing they want to do is they want to cancel our history. Now, you all are very informed, and you've probably seen the 1619 Project, right? And what it wants to do to rob us of history. It wants to put slavery at the center of our national narrative. Now, this is a horrible part of our American history, but we need to acknowledge it and realize the equality that we have, not because government gives people rights and equality, but because God does, right? And we want to teach people to love our country and not to hate it. So I'm in full support, and I've been messaging everywhere I get, the 1776 Commission, which if you want to download that, it's a brief 42-page read. I would encourage you to download, you can find it at hillsdale.edu, the 1776 Commission, print it out and read it again. And it is a great overview of the values that we need to share with the next generation to be able to preserve this country. The other thing they want to cancel is other members of Congress. They want to take Marionette Miller's meek seat, like I just talked to you about, who's already in Congress. And if there's another, one thing they hate, you know, they don't like diversity on the Republican side, and they want to take away. They don't like it on the GOP side. So if there is a person of color that's GOP, you better believe they're going to come after, like my friend Byron Donalds down in Naples, Florida. And you better believe that they're going to come after Marjorie Taylor Greene, right, in Georgia. She is a sitting member of Congress in committee. They looked back and found a careless Facebook like from 2 years before she ever even ran for office and said, you know what, we're going to strip you of your committees because of something she doesn't even agree with anymore, and it was 2 years prior. Absolutely. They're about canceling other members of Congress. And they're also about coming after you. And I don't think that they should come after you through tech platforms, individually, education, and I don't think they should take over your civics. So I hope and I pray that we work together here in Lee County and the other 99 counties in this state and all across our country. We stop this destruction at every level from the left, and that we get back to making our country great again. So thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.